On today's Locked On Senators, a game day preview. The Sens are back on home ice for a 7 o'clock start against the St. Louis Blues.
And we have an interview with friend of the show, TSN play-by-play announcer for the Ottawa Senators. It's John Abbott.
Always a fun conversation with Abbs. We'll get into that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1007 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first ticketing purchase. Sports, comedy, theater, $20 off your first purchase by using code Locked On with Game Time. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where you can watch me have two hands on my coffee throughout today's show. We appreciate all the likes, comments, and subscriptions. It really does help the show grow. Today is Thursday, March 21st, and Pilsy, speaking about growing, the Tkachuk family is growing. Stick taps are in order for the captain of the Ottawa Senators, Brady Tkachuk, and his wife Emma, announcing on Instagram yesterday that a baby boy is coming September 24.
Yeah, that's great news for Brady and the entire Tkachuk family. We're stoked to hear that. And Ross, the baby is due right before the start of next season. So hopefully, you guys know I'm a big fan of whenever athletes have a baby, they're going to have a big boost in their performance. Well, Brady Tkachuk, that's going to arrive right in time. And Brady Tkachuk, already a pretty strong dude, but add some dad strength to the mix, and the rest of the league better look out.
Brady turns 25 September 16th, so he'll be just getting into his mid-20s here and looking to lead this team beyond what we've seen so far in the time he's been in Ottawa. Can you believe he's already played 6 seasons after this one with the Ottawa Senators?
Wow.
Feels like just yesterday he was a bit of a gazelle on the ice, where it was like, or a baby deer, where remember like the first season he was falling all the time, and we're like, is he just learning to skate? Little did we know this guy is an absolute beast out there. So it's great to see Brady taking big steps off the ice. Obviously got married last summer and now welcoming a baby Tkachuk into the world come September. I've already got him penciled in on a wing with Tim Stützle at center and Gavin Giroux on right wing. 2040. It'll be a grizzled vet Tim Stützle with the two youngsters on either side. But congratulations are in order to Brady Tkachuk. And funny enough, when Brady was just a baby, he played for the St. Louis Junior Blues AAA program growing up in St. Louis. And tonight, the Sens are hosting the St. Louis Blues. Let's get to our game day preview right off the bat, because we've got almost a half hour coming up with John Abbott, one of the good guys in the game. Lots of talk about the head coaching situation in Ottawa and what needs to change on the ice, but also just guys being dudes. Great conversation, always catching up with John Abbott. Now, the St. Louis Blues, kind of on the periphery, word of the day, but also they need this game so badly. They're 4 points back of Vegas for the final playoff spot, and Vegas has a game in hand. So they're well past controlling their own destiny, but play Gloria, they haven't needed to control their own destiny before. They're able to kind of have the luck of the Irish on their side. So big game for them, and the Senators have an opportunity to play spoiler.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Ross. Like this game for the St. Louis Blues, they're not quite right there, but they're still close enough that they can't be giving up yet. And the guys in the locker room will know that, the coaching staff, everyone. And if you're looking at the Ottawa Senators, if you're the St. Louis Blues, you're probably thinking, these are the 2 points we should have, and they're going to be going hard for it. So it'll be interesting to see how the Senators battle back against that.
Periphery, word of the day, the external boundary of any surface or area. In this case, playoffs, but they're also going to be scoreboard watching. They're going to get off the ice in Ottawa after getting the 2 points. Oh, did I ruin the script? And then they'll be looking at Vegas. Vegas is hosting the Seattle Kraken tonight. And wouldn't it be just hilarious if the Vegas Golden Knights missed the playoffs? Just saying. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. It's going to be a good test, though, for Ottawa
cap
tonight.
Space would go to waste.
Taking on a team like the St. Louis Blues, who, I mean, they've kind of been with, the thing I posted about the Senators earlier this season, where it's like, the heart rate going up and down and up and down. And it's like one day they think they're the best team, they're going to make playoffs. And then something happens to them and they're like, oh, we are so done. They just won 4 in a row and then lost to Colorado in a game that they were leading late in the second period. Mikko Rantanen tied it, and then Mikko Rantanen won it in the third period for them. So St. Louis is coming in off a loss. They need this game. And for the Ottawa Senators, it's all about being that team that can spoil the party, spoil the fun. We just saw the Senators were on the ice for the morning skate. We did not get a line combination, so we're going to go with what we saw last night. Heck, the lines actually haven't changed in the last 4 or 5 games for the Senators, who come into this game reeling off of 2 brutal back-to-back losses to Carolina and to Boston. So what's next for the Ottawa Senators is hopefully a little consistency throughout the game, throughout multiple periods. Pillsy, why don't you read off the lines here as Alfie wants to get in the mix?
All right. So for top line center, number 57, Shane Pinto with Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson on his wings. Then you got Timmy Stützle with Joseph and Claude Giroux. Zach Ostapchuk still in the mix here with Ridley Gregg and Dominic Kubalik. Mark Kastelic manning the fourth line center position with Boris Tkachuk and Parker Kelly on defense. We've got the defense partners that are etched in stone here, Sanderson and Artem Zub. Then you got Thomas Chabot and Eric Brandstrom. And finally, Jacob Chikrin and Jacob Bernard-Docker, the 2 Jacobs on one pair there. And we know Anton Forsberg is going to be the starter tonight, backed up by Eunice Korpisalo. My locked-on player for tonight's game is going to be Brady Tkachuk. I mean, how do you go anywhere else here? This all kind of wraps up into a perfect opportunity for Brady here. He's coming off a goal last game, a quick 10-minute misconduct after he kind of lost it as the wires got crossed with Lauko at the end of the Bruins game there. The ref said, hey, Brady, cool off, go hop in the showers a little early. And fresh off the announcement of a new baby boy on the way. And the St. Louis Blues, where, as Ross mentioned, Brady grew up, so he's definitely familiar with them. Walt Tkachuk, obviously his dad, very familiar with them, working with the team. So this game is shaping up for Brady to have a good one here. So I'm going to be locked on to number 7, the captain, Brady Tkachuk.
Last year, when the St. Louis Blues came to Ottawa, it was one of Ottawa's better games in the second half of last season. It was a 7-2 win where I believe Ridley Gregg scored either his first career goal. I think it was. I remember Ridley's 2 goals last year. One was the second goal in a 7-2 loss and the 7th goal in a 7-2 win. So I don't know whether it was the first or second, but I remember that it was a great vibes game for the Ottawa Senators getting that 7-2 win over St. Louis. I'm going to go with Anton Forsberg. You mentioned the expected starter tonight. Only played St. Louis twice, but he's 1-0-1 against St. Louis, and he's only allowed a goal in each of those games. And because one went to overtime, he's actually got a .87. No, not save percentage. I knew you thought we were going save percentage. That's his goals against average against St. Louis with a .963 save percentage. So I'm going to be wanting a bounce back performance from Anton Forsberg after struggling against Carolina. So my locked on player tonight is Anton Forsberg. Pillsy, give me a key to victory tonight for the Sens.
Don't get scored on first. You're at home at the Canadian Tire Center. It's such a deflating moment when the Ottawa Senators inevitably get scored on the first or second shot. So get the first 2 saves, Forsberg, and then let's work on having the lead instead of chasing it here, because the CTC, you got to get those vibes up early here.
Well said. Pillsy, great night in Ottawa. It's Pride Night, and I love they did the same thing last year as well, where they've got the different colored t-shirts all around the rink. Makes for such a cool look all around. So I'm fired up to see what the Senators are going to do to put on a show for the fans going down to the CTC. A reminder, if you're heading to the game, Glebe Central Pub Shuttle, $17 to and from the CTC. Pillsy, who did you put for your favorite former Senator that has also played for the St. Louis Blues?
I mean, it's got to be Jamie Rivers, no?
Gotta be Jamie Rivers, our guy. What an absolute beauty. He's having fun with us on social media. I went with Vladimir Tarasenko. I said, is it too soon? But there's lots of good players to choose from. Wade Redden, a lot of people don't realize, played some time with the St. Louis Blues. Our guy Nick Spence has been great. He's like, we asked the question, and I love getting the photos back for ours. Nick Spence goes with the lineup style, and he's got some great names on here. Dean McCammon, a bit of an unsung hero with that Stanley Cup final team for the Ottawa Senators. He's on there. You've got Brian Elliott, who had some good years in St. Louis. Ottawa got Ben Bishop from St. Louis for just a second-round pick when he was just up and coming. And, of course, rest in peace to the late, great Pavel Demitra, who this year was just inducted into the St. Louis Blues Hall of Fame. And one of the cool moments of the year was they showed Big Walt, Keith Tkachuk, calling Dimitra's wife to let him know that posthumously he would be getting that honor. The St. Louis Blues and Ottawa Senators always have some fun when they get on the ice together. And of course, you mentioned one of the big reasons is Brady Tkachuk, who in his career, I know you said he likes playing St. Louis. In his career, he's got 6 points in 8 games against the Blues. That's our game day preview. We'll take a quick look at the Blues lineup after. Let's talk to John Abbott. I want to get to Abbs right now, and then we'll discuss the St. Louis Blues next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mary J's. You guys know Mary J's is a locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area. It started off with 3 best friends. One of them, Dashy. What up, Dashy? They decided to make a life-changing decision and start their own store in Kingston. They grinded. They had hard work and dedication, and that success led to 4 stores in Ottawa today. The Ottawa locations are Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. Mary J's offers the best and newest products in the market. They're adding new stuff to the menu every single week to keep it fresh. They got whatever you want, whether you're a rookie looking to try something new or a grizzled vet and you already know what you want and you want to be in and out of there quick. They got you. Mary J's offers competitive pricing. In fact, they're going to price match any store in Ottawa. That means you're guaranteed to get the best price around whenever you go to Mary J's. And they've got the best customer service by having friendly bud tenders who are always ready to help. Dashy is usually at one of the 4 stores. So go say what up to Dashy for yourself at any of the 4 stores. Ask him about how the Ottawa Senators are going to beat the St. Louis Blues, and ask him all about the newest, latest, greatest products that Mary J's has to offer. Check it out today, guys. Say what up to Dashy at Mary J's.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the only ticketing app I use for all of my live events. You don't need to worry when you're buying tickets, and I'm not either. I'm heading to the Mullet Arena, the iconic Mullet Arena this Sunday, and even though there's only, 12 seats, I'm not worried that I'm not going to get mine because I'm using Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind. 2 taps and buy tickets in seconds. They're obsessed with finding ways to help save you money on tickets. Game Time has tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute tickets. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Now here's Sens Hockey, TSN, play-by-play analyst, John Abbott. All right, we now welcome back a friend of the show, his third appearance on the Locked On Senators podcast. You can hear him doing play-by-play for Sens Hockey on TSN, Mr. John Abbott. Abbs, what's going on, brother? How you doing today?
Fellas, I'm better for starting my day with you. I am very excited to be on Locked On again. And you know what? Big shoes to fill after the 1000th episode with the one and only Dave Poulin on board. That was a great listen and always fun when we connect.
Well, we got questions for you about Poulin because I know you guys have a history well beyond meeting, talking Sens, but you're calling Sens games, but you're also a chauffeur, eh? Every morning you're up early getting the kids to school or what?
When I'm home, I like to. Yeah, it gets extra little time. The bus comes pretty early, so once in a while we give the youngsters a break. My oldest two are 7 and 5, so once in a while Dad gets to drive them in, give them an extra little break in the mornings, and I love every second of it. So happy to do that.
Yeah,
and made it back just in time.
It's got to be nice for someone that's on the road as often as you to get to come back and spend time with the family. I know we talked to Kyle Bukowskis, and he was saying he used to love being on the road earlier in his life, but then as you have relationships and you're more settled at home, coming home is a big deal. So it's got to be nice for you to be able to be home for a little bit here.
Yeah, you cherish the time that you get, because during the hockey season, and lacrosse season for me, kind of 8 months, it's all jam packed in there. But that's the nature of the business at the same time. So, yeah, it takes quite a bit during that part of the season to make it all work. Thankfully, my wife's putting up with me still to this point. But yeah, it's always nice when you can come home and get some time with family, and then look forward to the next game at the same time.
So how many days do you think you've been on the road since, let's say, October, when the start of the Sens season?
Oh, I don't have that calculated, but I know we end up spending, I want to say we're in a hotel maybe like 115 nights in 8 months or something like that.
Wow.
So it adds up pretty quickly through the course of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, you've been calling a lot of the games with Noodles as your color guy. What have you learned about Noodles this season that you didn't know about him before?
Well, I absolutely love Noodles. Right from day one, he always just took it upon himself to make me feel comfortable and really support me in the booth and outside of the booth. And as a guy coming in who had never worked with him before, I can't say enough about his professional approach, and he just loves the game so much too. It's almost like he's a part-time scout, even though he's a full-time analyst. Like, he's watching, 3 and 4 games every single night. So I love just picking his brain about the game too. But I would say the two things I didn't know going in is he's a big comedy fan. He loves he has a great sense of humor himself, but he loves a good comedy show and has kept track of different comedians throughout the years. And he's really talented musician. I think everyone knows his connection with Nickelback, and once in a while popping on stage with Chad, but he can play
guitar.
He plays the guitar. Nice. He can play the drums. Whoa. And he's not a bad singer. So yeah, he's a multi-talented individual. Yeah, we're lucky to have him. For sure, and it wouldn't be the same for me, without the support I've received from Jamie, for sure.
I think we were talking the morning of, but how the heck did he leave you in LA, get back to Toronto, and make it to Trade Center, then do his own radio show? I mean, I had a lot of respect for him before, but to me, seeing that was absolutely absurd.
He loves the grind. He does. That's another quality of his that's just easy to wrap your arms around, because he works it. He brings it. There's nothing that he won't do if you put it in front of him. And that day was probably, I have to think that's the longest day he's had this year, because it was a red-eye flight from one part of the continent to the other here, and then going straight to the seat at Trade Center, having, I don't know how much time in between, but probably not a lot, just to catch his breath, maybe grab some food, and then get right into the overdrive seat and do it like he didn't miss a beat. And then I think it was the next day he was out to rejoin for another road trip. So yeah, he did. That was quite the span of 48 hours, I think, for him, but he pulled it all off as he normally does. And yeah, he's a beauty. We're lucky to have him at TSN, that's for sure.
Well, since I'm asking about your coworkers, I know this is a little bit different because he's with TSN 1200, but what kind of conversations have you had over the years that you've been doing Sens hockey with Dean Brown? Obviously, he's called almost every game in Sens history. He's given you any good advice?
Well, Dean and Gord, very thankful to consider them friends and colleagues. And from my first go around in the 67s days, I was the guy that I was bugging them every chance I could get to pick their brain and, lean into any advice they had about the position of play-by-play, but broadcasting in general, and, what it was going to take to get to the National Hockey League. And Dean and Gord have always had time for me. They've always been super kind, and I consider them friends, which is fantastic. And what I like about those two is just right from day one with the team till now, their enthusiasm for the game hasn't changed. And when you go through, they've had lots of ups to enjoy, but when they have gone through some of the downs, like what's the biggest feedback I get from either listening to them previously or hearing people talk about that broadcast is it's always entertaining with Dean and Gord. And that's easy to say, sometimes harder to do, but they've always kept it. They have their own signature touch to the broadcast, and I think it's something Sens fans consider almost like walking into a room full of family at this point, which is maybe the biggest compliment you can get.
Oh yeah, they're hilarious. And I think it's an ultimate compliment when a lot of the time Sens fans love syncing up the radio broadcast to the TV. Not when you're on the call, Abbs, not when you're on the call, but
it's all good.
Typically Saturday nights, Ab. I'm not going to say anything about any networks or anything, but just every Saturday night, it's always great to hear Dean and Gord with TV on.
Yeah.
Hey,
exactly.
You know what? As an old radio guy, I can appreciate both sides of that. So it's all good. All good, boys.
Yeah. So sticking on TSN colleagues of yours, you mentioned Dave Poulin earlier on here, but your relationship with Poulin apparently goes farther back than just working at TSN. Tell us all about how you know Dave Poulin from earlier on. Well,
we all love Poulin, and anyone who has met the man instantly would say the same thing. And there's the hockey world is, as both of you know, just so many good people, and it's such a small, big world, if I can put it that way. And the connections are often mind-boggling. How you go through, the 3 degrees of separation, and for me, that's one with Poulin that I never could have imagined. As a younger guy coming from the 67s, the next opportunity for me was the Toronto Marlies in the American Hockey League. And that was a really big deal because it was my first taste of pro hockey. And who was responsible for signing off on bringing me in? Well, one of the main players was Dave Poulin, who was with the Toronto Maple Leafs and of course with the Toronto Marlies in an executive and management role at that time. So I actually had an interview with Poulin and then we had a couple of different chats, and he was the one that eventually brought me upstairs to meet Brian Burke, and Berkey, gave me the handshake and gave me the official, okay, you're the new guy. So yeah, lots of fond moments that I've cherished over the years, and that would be a big one for me. So then after that, I was sharing a lot of bus rides with Poulin. It was very nice to get to know him a little bit better, get to know his family along the way, and just have a lot of fun in those days. There was pretty good teams with the Toronto Marlies going all the way to the Calder Cup finals at one point, losing to John Cooper's Norfolk Admirals, one of the best teams I've ever seen play. But we had a lot of time on the bus and a lot of travel. So yeah, that's a small world moment with Poulin, and now a little stop in the middle with TSN, and now here we are connected again on different sides, broadcasting and back with the team for Poulin. So I'm happy for him, and yeah, it's crazy, this hockey world, how it connects everybody.
Well, so you have an inside track on Pooley's interviewing style because he's going to be a part of some big ones this summer with Steve Staios trying to get a permanent head coach in the mix for the Ottawa Senators. Watching this team over the course of the year, is there a style of coach that you think would complement the core of this group, or where do you think that conversation should head next?
That's a great question, and I do think
Thank you.
it is a big deal. You know, getting the proper personnel in place to try and push this team further along, and not only embrace and harness the skill and talent that's already there, but obviously continue the line that Jacques Martin has put out there to try and bring it all together to win more hockey games more consistently. And so it really is an all-encompassing position that's going to take, a lot of effort, but looking for immediate results, which is never easy, right? Like next year's got to be a far better year than this one, even though it takes time, and it's going to be another change behind the bench. So my vote's kind of a veteran guy that has the pedigree, that knows how to work with different players, different personalities, preferably somebody that's won a Stanley Cup. That would be the cherry on top, I think, and there are a few out there. So I think the good thing for Dave Poulin and Steve Staios and Ryan Bonus and Michael Anlauer is that, they're not scraping the bottom of the barrel. There are some legit candidates out there, and then there are other guys that they would know personally from their own hockey experiences. So it'll be interesting to see which way they go when it all shakes out. But my vote would lead to the veteran experience camp, because I just don't know how many more chances there are to get it right at this point. I think the pressure's on, and that's a group that had inherited a lot of different things, but I think they got to nail this decision moving forward.
Hope you're enjoying our chat with Abbs. We'll get right back to it. But first, Pilsy's got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Yes, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. And it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. It's that simple. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you want at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Check it out today, guys. eBay Motors.
Now more with John Abbott.
Now, the Ottawa Senators are up against the St. Louis Blues tonight, but their previous two games up against the Carolina Hurricanes and Boston Bruins, two heavy hitters in the Eastern Conference. Abbs, both of those games, the Ottawa Senators go into the third period just down one goal. They're right there. They're hanging on. But then the third period, complete collapse against both of them, and they end up losing 7-2 to the Hurricanes and 6-2 to the Bruins. Which of those games did you kind of feel that the Ottawa Senators had at least a better chance of contending and getting the win in that game? Or did it seem a little too far-fetched for them to be able to overcome trailing in the third period to two good teams like that in both games?
Yeah, Pilsy, that's a tough one. They've typically played both teams hard, although their record against the Bruins, led me to believe that maybe that's the team that brings the best out of them. And if you would have told me it would finish as a 1-goal game, I wouldn't have been surprised. So I would say I probably had more belief in the Boston game, especially the way that second period ended with Tkachuk finding that goal and, kind of issuing a quick response. And how many times have the Sens been scored on late? Now they flip the script and actually have some momentum themselves. So probably a little more belief in that Boston game. The Canes game was strange in a couple of senses. Like the third period started and there were so many fans that had been caught in the concessions that
Me.
there was, right? Like it's St. Patrick's Day, you're having a good time. You're upstairs grabbing some bevies, and it just seemed like at different parts all over the rink. I just happened to notice that when I looked down to start the third, that there's a whole lot of people missing, which is not usually the case in Ottawa. And so there was kind of a quiet lull in the crowd, and then the team kind of looked a bit flat. Then the goals start going in, and then there's no atmosphere. So that one felt like it was, it was decided pretty quickly. Once the third period didn't go their way. So I would have to say I thought maybe Boston would be different, but unfortunately for this team, kind of a similar fate for the last two hockey games.
Yeah, the script remains the same. And at least, with Boston, you're getting beat with a pass to hat trick. And Linus Ullmark was playing real well in the second period. I don't know, you probably ran out of breath telling every shot that Ottawa had. 23 in the second period. But it just feels like they're having trouble stringing good periods together consistently. So is that something that you feel like is where coaching can help going forward? Or is that something where the players are going to have to kind of, pull up their socks here and get dirty for longer periods of time?
Oh, I wish I had a straightaway answer. And I think it's both, to be honest with you, Ross. They're trying different things. Jacques Martin was telling us that, he even took a page from the Pittsburgh Steelers training camp where, instead of one big video session where he feels at times guys are maybe not more apt to speak their mind or ask questions because it's a big group, and channeling different smaller groups with, an individual coach assigned to each group, and leads to more conversation, maybe some more questions asked, just to be able to break things down in a different way. So they've tried that. They've tried, obviously the tough love approach. Jacques was telling us in the Carolina game, he kind of went after it in the second intermission. So I think all ground has been covered. I think probably everyone is frustrated. That's the best way I can convey this right now. And you're seeing it on the ice. They do have two good periods, or they do have different spots within a game where it seems like it lines up, and even a string of games, those overtime extra time games, there was a lot to like in those different games. And then two games later, and it seems like they're right back where they started. So I think there's a lot of frustration. I think we're seeing it on a nightly basis with a guy like Tim Stützle, who just wants to win so bad he can't help but let his frustration out when he's not. But I think it's all a learning experience right now. And I guess I'm a bit surprised from where we started the season to where we are now, how much more learning there needs to be, I think, to get this team to a consistent basis every night. I think that's still a ways away.
Final question for me here, Abbs, and this has been great having you join us. We always love catching up with you. So, little bit of a weird amount of time left in the season, only a couple games. The Sens are very much out of the playoff race here. Yeah, sorry, Ross. I know that's probably comes to a shock to you. Don't spill your coffee, though. Hold on things there. But what do you think the Ottawa Senators, what's the big thing that they can work on or learn, or what should the goals be for the rest of the season? Because I think Sens fans are kind of fatigued to the whole let's go on a hot streak and we'll carry this into training camp next season, and that's going to give us the start we need to the next year, winning 10 meaningless games in March. I think the Sens fans are kind of tired of that narrative because it hasn't seemed to work out. It happens every single year apparently, but it doesn't translate to the next season. So in your opinion, what are the bright spots, or what are the things the Sens can build on in these remaining games here?
Well, I don't know that it's totally original to only the Ottawa Senators, but I think the way Jacques Martin would like them to play, I think what this management group, the reason that Jacques behind there, how they want to see this team move forward is more of a commitment on the defensive side of the game, trying to maintain structure within a game, and then rely on your talent either up front to take over or your forecheck. And I know those sound like blueprints for every team, every game to try and execute on, but clearly, there's different nights where you don't have it. There's been too many of those for Ottawa. I think the games we've seen them play the best under Jacques Martin, it is pretty evident that, his little checklist of things are occurring, and keeping the shift short is one of those. Paying attention to where you are in the neutral zone is another. Having a better positioning at your own blue line, and then having commitment with all 5 guys. And again, these are kind of like buzz things that you throw out there as a coach, but we've seen the centers track back this year at different times and help out in their own zone, and try and formulate the breakout after a puck recovery. So it's not going to happen each and every shift, but I think attention to detail really is probably the blanket statement. And again, that kind of sounds like a cliche, but attention to detail on how Jacques Martin wants them to play, because I don't get the sense that they're, for everybody that wanted the interim tag removed and a head coach to come in now, I understand that. But the whole point of having Jacques Martin in is to give them time to find the guy they want, but still implement the things that they're looking for moving forward. So whatever this adjustment is with the players, and some of them, the top players, needing to make to play the way that this group wants them to play, that's not going to change when the new coach comes in. It might be slightly different, but the idea and the principle is going to be the same. So whatever it is that they're not executing on, they got to get used to doing it differently, because this is going to be the way that they're expected to play moving forward.
Yeah, and with Jacques Martin, Poulin telling us that he's going to stay a part of the organization in all likelihood, in kind of the role he was hired as a coaching advisor, and more of a managerial role versus being on the bench every day. And makes sense. I mean, you've been at the morning skates. He's not often, if ever, on the ice, is he?
I believe I've seen him once, and typically, he's behind the bench, or he's checking it out from afar. So yeah, you're right. Yeah. It is, he's kind of the setup man, and then relying on his staff of Jack Capuano, Daniel Alfredson, and Ben Sexton to execute, the game plan during practice and during morning skates. So, that will be different as well. You'll have the hands-on person, you'll have the hands-on coach being able to go through things with you. But I'm not expecting the messaging to change that much, despite another new coach coming in next year.
Well, I hope Jacques' not a big numbers guy, because his points percentage in his career has taken a bit of a tumble this year. He was first in Sens history, or second rather, just behind Brian Murray. Now he's fallen below John Paddock and Dave Cameron, two iconic eras during the Sens previous regime. But Abbs, we can break this down 100 different ways. But if you're dead last in 5-on-5 save percentage, and your power plays bottom 5 in the league, and your penalty kills bottom 5 in the league, you're never going to make playoffs. So those are also things where it's like, what is it, 18 times now this season where they've allowed a goal in the first 2 shots? Like, can you tell, and final question for me, how deflating that is on the bench? It's like, how many times can the Sens tweet out, hey, we're underway? Opponent opens the scoring is the next tweet. Like, it's night in, night out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're right. It is deflating. It is noticeable. And it's because it's happened more than just a couple of times. And, our job's to tell the story, and sometimes the story hasn't been very good. You can go down to different stats, even when they've allowed a goal against at any point, how quickly they allow another one. That's not another category they've done well in. You think of, just because of the last game, they've allowed 6 goals 12 times this year. They've allowed 7 goals 4 times this year. I mean, you can get into numbers that are not very good, and it tells part of the story where when they've struggled, they've really struggled. And Pilsy, Ross, you guys are asking me what needs to change. Well, quite a lot needs to change. I think obviously the idea that I posed was something that the coaching staff's working on, is the structure of the game. But let's be frank, I mean, the goaltending needs to be way better too. So there's a whole lot of things that are, I'm sure this group is hoping that this is the downside. This season is kind of the low point, and next year
can't get much worse.
Right, next year they'll have it all together, and it'll be a different type of season. So that remains to be seen. But one thing that's clear is that this didn't go the way anybody expected it to. Steve Staios has said the expectations maybe were set a little too high in regards to claiming that playoffs were a certainty this year. But, next year, I don't think this fan base is looking for anything less. I mean, it's a team in Canada, and it's a team that's missed for quite a few years. So even if the club doesn't say it, I think the fans are still expecting that next year this team's in a much better position.
Well said, Abbs. Lots of things are going to change. However, one thing we hope stays consistent is you calling Sens games, Abbs. We love the passion, the enthusiasm, and then mix in a Timmy superstar every now and again. Abbs, when's the next time we'll be able to catch you on a Sens broadcast?
Well, I love talking to you guys, and it gives me an excuse to actually try and make this a man cave because it's a multifaceted room in our house, and I always just try to sneak more sports stuff in. You can see all the jerseys. I try to have one for every team I've worked with, by the way. But it gives me a good excuse to make it more of a man cave down here. The next one for me is another former team from Jamie McLennan. That'll be the Florida Panthers in April, and then finish the season back-to-back with New York and Boston. So pretty good threesome to end the season for me. And you know what? We'll keep following the storylines, and hopefully we're always going to have fun. Hopefully have a little bit more fun with where the team's at next time around.
Absolutely, Abbs. Well, now you're a 3-time guest, so you can never say no. So we're already looking forward to the next time, and we always appreciate your insight and everything that you bring to the table. So thanks for doing this, and we'll chat again soon.
Anytime, guys. You know that. Love you, boys.
All right, Millsy. Great conversation with Abbs. Always look forward to seeing him on Ottawa Senators broadcast. Just a great dude, down to earth, and man, just gets fired up on the call. The passion comes through, and I can't wait for more John Abbott on Locked On Senators and on the Senators broadcast. All right, we'll get to a Tank Watch quick update at the end of today's show, but Pillsy, we got to get to the St. Louis Blues line in what I'll call a must-win game. It's been a while since I've been able to say that, but for the Blues, it really is tonight.
I was going to say, I thought you were saying for the Sens. I was like, wow, Ross putting a lot of weight on this one.
No, it's a must-win for the Blues, who are 4 points back of Vegas, although the Golden Knights do have a game in hand. Robert Thomas is their first-line center between Braden Shen and Jake Neighbors. Like a good neighbor, Jake is there. And then Pavel Buchnevich is on the second line center with Brandon Saad and Jordan Kyrou. Third line is Kevin Hayes, Zach Bolduc, and Kasperi Kapanen. And the fourth line is Zach Dean with Toropchenko and Walker on his wings. On defense, it's Nick Leddy with Colton Parayko. It's Marco Scandella with Justin Falk. And Torrey Krug is with Matt, don't call me Phil, Kessel. In goal, we expect it to be Jordan Binnington. And Winnipeg's own Joel Hofer is backing up. Pillsy, give me a lookout player. And don't do your honorable mention because he's mine.
Oh, okay. I won't do my honorable mention. My lookout player is going to be Pavel Buchnevich. Interesting to see him at the center position. As far as I've always known, he's always been a winger. I think he's one of those guys that I don't want to say unsung hero or over or underrated. Maybe I'll say overlooked because he's such a consistent goal scorer that I think teams don't necessarily game plan around him, but he's got such a nice shot. He came over from the New York Rangers to the St. Louis Blues, and he's almost a point per game guy since he's been in St. Louis. So he's really found a home for himself there. And the reason, Ross, that I'm nervous about Buchnevich, he has no goals in the month of March. Now, I know my no-goal candidate, Charlie Coyle, didn't score up against the Sens, but I am nervous that Buchnevich, a sniper, is going to snap that streak here up against Ottawa. So I'm looking out for number 89, Pavel Buchnevich.
My lookout player also has never scored an NHL goal, but tonight is his first NHL game, and local fans will know Zach Dean from his time with the Gatineau Olympiques, where he wore a letter and in his final season had 26 points in 13 playoff games. He was a first-round pick of the Vegas Golden Knights. But as we know, the Vegas Golden Knights don't keep their first-round picks. He was in the trade that brought Ivan Barbashev to Vegas. So obviously you can say, looking back, that was a good trade. But Zach Dean will get his NHL debut. He played his junior in Gatineau, but his girlfriend's from Ottawa as well. So I'm sure he'll have friends and family in the stands tonight. And I mean, you can chalk it up to a first NHL goal, can't you? I mean, born in Grand Prairie, but he's a Newfoundlander as well. We love our Newfies, our East Coast boys on the show. So I'll be cheering for him. And hey, if he gets a couple, that's fine. The Tank Watch is on.
Yeah, what does it really matter? It would mean more to him than it would against the Sens here. So yeah, Zach Dean, that's an interesting one for sure.
All right, Pillsy. As we mentioned, the tank is on, and we'll be watching scoreboards for the rest of the season with 15, 16 games left. Tonight, the only real one is Montreal visiting Vancouver. I know I'm on record. I want Ottawa to finish ahead of Montreal, no matter what that means for the Tank Watch standings. But that's really the only game because Arizona did not do us a favor yesterday. Arizona lost to Dallas in regulation. Columbus is off, and those are the three teams, really, that the Ottawa Senators are jockeying with for position between 26th and 29th in the NHL standings.
Yeah, so not a whole lot as far as tank watch goes, Ross, but as far as playoff race watching goes, there is a massive game tonight. The New York Islanders up against the Detroit Red Wings. That game could honestly decide which one of those teams makes it into the playoffs. So I might have a side TV on that game.
Well, we got the postcast coming up. It will be the 200th postcast in Locked On Senators history. We hope to see you there. Full crew, Martian, Pilsy, and I will all be live following tonight's game, 7 o'clock at the Canadian Tire Center, and the vibes are free at the GCP, so why don't you hop on the Glebe Central Pub shuttle? Just $17 round trip. You can get your tickets at the Glebe Central Pub website and head to 779 Bank Street, and they will bring you right to the game and take you right back to the pub afterwards, where the vibes, yeah, as I said, they are free. For today, we say goodbye. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. We'll see you tonight in the postcast. Thank you for watching. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.